Hey, everybody, welcome back to Spin Rack. What is going on, everybody? Today is the Fantastic Four 40th anniversary. I'm here with my boys, Petey and Cal. Say what's up, guys.
What up?
Ready to rock with the originals, the Fantastic Four.
Created by Stan Lee
and Jack Kirby.
There's a lot of debate about that, but hey.
There's no debate about them working on it together.
There's a lot of debate, but hey, we're here to celebrate Fantastic Four 40th anniversary.
Oh my God.
They've been around for a while. It's got to be more than 40th and 50th anniversary.
No, 60th.
60th, so.
60th anniversary.
So we should start it over again?
Well, we just corrected you, so I'm okay with having the video where you're corrected.
Here's a great picture of some of their greatest foes and some of their friends over time. So here, I'm going to talk to Petey and Cal. We're going to discuss this, and hopefully you enjoy what you see. So, Petey, what's the significance of this, that they've been here? This is the comic that started off the whole thing, Stan Lee put together, and it was what basically helped to restart the whole comic book boom again.
No, well, more the comic boom, but also the super. No, actually, DC had already had their boom with the Flash, and they were doing good numbers. And if you look at the numbers during the period, like DC is selling very, very well. But the Marvel books, Fantastic Four being one of them, this was their first hit is the Rawhide Kid, but not a big hit, but some decent sales. This is a reaction to the Justice League. And in reaction to Justice League and Kirby kind of doing something similar to what he had done as far as at least the outfits in the Challenge of the Unknown, they came together, added a monster from their Atlas period, and we got the Fantastic Four. Now, one of the things that we point out that we had seen these sort of characters before. We'd seen the Human Torch in the past. We've seen Plastic Man. We've seen the Invisible Man, and we've seen the Atlas monsters. But the way they put these together and the sort of personalities, which ultimately hadn't been done before that, and that's what I can, attribute to Stan, the bickering, the arguing, and of course with Kirby's art and Kirby, so both of them going to that. This is the first real time where you really got to see personalities, whereas if you look at the Justice League, most of the characters, even the Super Friends, the personalities, there wasn't that much difference. The heroes just did, and that was mainly for heroes just to do a task. Here's the task, here's the villain, they would handle it. The criminal, the villain might have a little more evil sort of personality, but the Fantastic Four, the heroes had the personalities, and that's the power of this. And at the same time, this influenced dialogue still to this day. The approach to the characters, the approach to the supporting characters, not only Alicia kind of inverting the Beauty and the Beast thing, where the beauty only likes the beast, and that's within the first 100 issues that kind of stick to that. But as they go along, we also have the death of Johnny Storm and Sue Storm's father, Franklin Storm. We had a death that was permanent, even if it was to sort of get rid of the character so he can't be the father and be like, I don't want you guys in the team. We had a death that was real, it was powerful, it wasn't an imaginary story. And this was a death that didn't necessarily affect the rest of the series, but it affected comic books where you would see more death. You see the death of Captain Stacy, the death of Gwen Stacy, the death of Phoenix, and you have the death effect in these comic books going on to the future. And that's just from doing it with a supporting character. So ultimately, with these 102 issues that Stan Lee and this was Byrne's tribute here, doing most of those characters in there that they created. And they created such a wealth of villains that you could pick up and do a story with almost any of these ones. Even the times where I think they thought Stan and Jack thought Diablo was kind of lame and they never brought him back again. I think John Byrne's first story is with Diablo. So it's like one of the things you can do is like they gave them this wealth of characters, and they also spawned every other Marvel character that came after that. The Hulk, Spider-Man, Iron Man, all of it is kind of their spin-offs of this series. We don't look at it because we look at the X-Men and we think of the spin-off as X-Force, X-Factor, this, that, and the other. First, it was the Fantastic Four, and then we got all these other heroes. So that is my open to them, to the Fantastic Four. The people don't really understand them these days. but that's because they don't really understand the dynamic, and the writing of the things have kind of gotten moved away from some of the things that Stan and Jack did. So it's kind of a tough property for a lot of people to do. But when it's done right, it's done right. I pass it on. Cal, what do you have to add?
Well, this came about. We were actually thinking of doing something on this because I had to answer a question from someone. They're asking, who's the center of the DC universe? That's easy. It's Superman. That was, end of story. And all of the heroes that come, after are all derivatives, analogs, or the antithesis of Superman. That's from Superman going through Marvel image. It's all Superman at the end of the day. I can make an argument, for just about any character within the superhero world. But someone did ask, well, hey, who's the center of the Marvel universe? And for me, I was thinking, well, it's got to be those original that thinking like a Knights of the Round Table scenario, like those 12 series that came out. And it was the Fantastic Four and Spider-Man, because they were also interconnected, because that's how I was approaching the Marvel universe. And then you brought in with like, well, it's the Fantastic Four, and you can see how each one of the series that comes afterwards pretty much extends from that idea of the Fantastic Four. Now, you already touched on the elements of the Fantastic Four that had come, with the romance and the horror and the monster comics, that type of stuff, and then putting that all together into one comic and allowing them to have definitely more personality than heroes, had before, and problems at the same point. Where, okay, I'm the hero, I'm the good guy, but I'm this orange rock monster, and I don't necessarily want to be like this in order to be the hero. So the whole idea of almost like having the wolf, the wolfman's curse at the end of the day, but you're still the hero in the story to get things done, as opposed to people trying to kill you with silver. So, you definitely had those turns. But then, I stopped and I looked and I was like, wow, yeah. Because you would look and you'd say, all right, if you just look at the teams, you get the Fantastic Four, and then you can really hear the publisher like, hey, that Fantastic Four is working. You think you could do that like in a World War II setting? Sure, no problem. We get Sergeant Fury, and his Howling Commandos, but that same sort of thing where we've got the leader, who without a doubt is Nick Fury. And then all of the other tributaries towards that particular line with Dum Dum Dugan, Gabriel Jones, all of that stuff that would come in, but definitely within the same type of trophies that you get from the Fantastic Four. Then, you get the Avengers, you get the X-Men, and once you peel that back, you realize just how influential the Fantastic Four is to the Marvel Universe, and how much of the Marvel Universe centers on that dynamic of the Fantastic Four, which they have lost today in a big way. The Fantastic Four has this great family dynamic that is established very, very early on, and not just that, but also the personality of the characters that went along with where the DC heroes were. I mean, the DC heroes were pretty much just gods. They would come down, do what they needed to do, and they left at the end of the day. There's nothing lingering before or after, or even during, when they're doing this type of stuff. Quintessential classic heroes at the end of the day. And with the Fantastic Four, with that personality, brings in definitely more layers, more situations, more conflict, and that's your typical Marvel hero at the end of the day. Without a doubt, the only exception I might say is Spider-Man. But even Spider-Man is still in that same vein of the hero being, for the most part, this person who has all of these other things going on in addition to being the hero of the story, and not the everyman, but the hero of the story as well. So I like to look at that, what I think is the classic run. It's Jack Kirby and Stan Lee's run, the first 100 issues. And it's almost, I'd have to really sit down and do the scholarship on it. But in terms of comics, that's without a doubt, it's one of the best runs of all time in terms of comics. And you can see just from the productivity of the characters that come out, of that run. Characters like, Black Panther, the Watcher, Doctor Doom, Galactus. You have characters that are both, you have great adversaries for the Fantastic Four, cosmic elements for the Fantastic Four, which is keeping in line with them being, I've always felt that they were in the same vein as the challenges of the unknown, just taken to a much higher degree. The Inhumans, just a bunch of great stuff that comes down the line to really put them through their paces. And if you're reading, you really didn't know what was going to happen next. The Fantastic Four could literally be put into any type of situation, and you could experience any type of adventure. They could be in New York and have to fend off Galactus, or the next thing you know, they were in the negative zone trying to find their way home, or they're underwater taking care of the Submariner. The closest, I mean, to an extent, with that, it reminded me of the Johnny Quest cartoons that I used to watch, where they would, literally Johnny could get into anything at any particular time, and you had that team. But even that, I felt, was a lot of challenges of the unknown at the end of the day. But the Fantastic Four could literally be on Earth 1 minute and on the other side of the universe the next minute, trying to sort some problem out with this dynamic of synergy that the Marvel offices have just forgotten when it comes to this group. They're much greater than the sum of their parts. It's not just the strong man and the hothead and the leader and the chick. You put the four of them together, and you get a synergy that's much greater than the actual powers that they possess. And they have really forgotten about that, and they don't understand. Yeah, I guess if you forget, you don't understand. They don't understand how to play. They don't understand how to play that up, and you're not getting the type of stories that you would have gotten with the Fantastic Four. Coming together as that gestalt, that made for such an incredible run from issue 1 to 100. But then again, you also don't have Jack Kirby and Stan Lee running on it. You have some guys, afterwards, who do some really hardcore runs, some really good stuff at the end of the day. But those first 100 issues, that's the blueprint for how you make great Fantastic Four stories. And it's almost like these guys have like, oh, we lost the books. Can somebody help us? Whatever. We'll just come over here and do this stuff. Hopefully people will like it. The saddest day was when they actually had to stop publishing the Fantastic Four, because it had gotten to the point where they no longer knew what to do with these characters. They had to put the Fantastic Four on ice so they could try to bring them back and get them right again. I've read here and there with some of the stories. I can't say that they have, okay, but hopefully, we'll get some good stuff, especially in their 60th year anniversary.
Well,
I mean, they had some pretty interesting stories that come out, like the marriage of Doom. That I found pretty.
Stop! Why would you go?
It just came out, bro. What do you mean? It's doing well. It's doing very well.
It's being good. It's not proof that it's good.
But I mean, we've seen that though. But just get back. The Fantastic Four. Yeah, I understand the first 100 comics were good, but they haven't had the success that they once did. Even in the 90s, which is practically another golden age for comics, their numbers were far lower than the X-Men.
Okay, all right, stop.
Yo, why are you always interrupting the narrative, bro?
I had to cut you off.
I wondered how long you were going to let him go.
Yo, I'm just saying.
You can't go to the 90s when this is the problem. What do you do when you had Walt Simonson on a very short run? It was a great run. It wasn't a huge seller, but the next person is the editor-in-chief. And somehow the actual editor doesn't say, let's get some top talent on the Fantastic Four. They waited till the end, right before Jim Lee took it, and had Charles Pacheco start doing the art for 2 issues. Like, why wait that long? And I like Paul Ryan, right? But at the same time, you don't do a 60 issue, like a 5-year run on the series, and say, hey, the numbers on the newsstand is fine. We're not doing anything in the comic book stores. But they didn't care. The same with Captain America, Iron Man. They just let the sales go, and they just said, well, our big numbers are Spider-Man and X-Men. Why should we worry? But the suits worried, and that's why they gave the book. You go into it. If you want to go to success, you got your Jim Lee book. You got your Jim Lee. I was
just trying to show one of the reasons the audience doesn't gravitate to this, as they once did, is that the numbers
gravitated to Jim Lee's version.
They've been down consistently over the years.
Jim Lee, you went to the 90s.
I get Jim Lee. That's one example. But I'm saying over the years, you don't have the same type. Even the Avengers comics have come up over these guys or so. Recently, in the last couple of years, the Fantastic Four, the run lately has been going pretty good.
The only one you're saying you can apply to any long-running series. What you're saying you can apply to any character that has been in the public eye for 50, 60 years. It doesn't hold a lot of water. It's just neither here nor there at the end of the day.
It
The
holds a lot of
importance of
water.
the importance of the Fantastic Four remains whether they're selling one book or a million. You know, that's the important thing. Again, the fact that these guys, you have, anytime that you look at a character, say like Jimmy Olsen, at one point, Jimmy Olsen is outselling Superman books. He's outselling Action Comics. He's outselling Superman. He's not doing that today. All right. The thing is, one, you should look at it and say, okay, at one point, Jimmy Olsen was this really viable character. What were we doing at this point so we can really keep this character viable and at least sell books? He doesn't have to sell Superman, but there's no reason why this guy shouldn't have a book. You apply the same thing with the Fantastic Four. If the Fantastic Four was able to do all of this stuff, what was the approach? Because the characters haven't changed dramatically. The approach to the characters has changed dramatically. And that's where it is. But to be quite honest, the Fantastic Four for Marvel, they were like, hey, we're getting money with Spider-Man. We're getting money with X-Men. And the Fantastic Four, hey, that's just free money. As long as we put FF on the cover, we're going to get some money for it at the end of the day. So we'll just keep publishing the book. But
look at the movie. The first
to make the book what it should be. Okay, without the earnest in making the book what it should be. There's your argument.
Yeah, no, that's the argument, because then you should say that about everything. Everything that's like you started off before. Every single comic should be like that. I just don't think there's been a resonance with the Fantastic Four in recent years. Of course, yeah, that's going to do with the writing and the artists who are out there. But look at the T-shirt I'm wearing. I don't see Fantastic Four on them.
Because you chose that T-shirt.
Yeah, I don't see that T-shirt out there often. You don't see that at all. That's the point I'm trying to make.
Oh, you chose the T-shirt.
If you go to the top Marvel comic T-shirts, Fantastic Four is not showing up there. It's not in the top ones.
Okay, all right. No, yeah. You know what? I'm gonna say we're not disagreeing that it's not the top #1 title.
Top 10, top 20, most likely.
The thing of it is this. Ultimately, the Fantastic Four went through this where it was the #1 comic until Spider-Man came along, and then it was the #2 Marvel comic, and it stayed there until the Hulk came along. So in the 70s, it was the #3 comic. It still sold more than the Avengers. Up until the X-Men got their success in the 80s, it sold more than that. The history, the way we backtrack it, because it didn't have Kirby on it, that it plummeted and it sold less than the Defenders, because everyone likes even the Defenders more than them. But the Fantastic Four was a successful, viable title. You had to, artists would go along to try to do it. They would pick whoever they felt were the top guys were doing it. You had Rick Buckler who was doing it. Like Prez slipped in because he was the assistant of Rick Buckler. But then they had Keith Pollard was another person who was on their top books. So it's like they had who was considered the top talent on those books. Doug Mensch, who's on there as a writer, one of Marvel's top writers. So they had the top talents. The thing is, and no pun intended, is that when Roy Thomas took it over, his approach was a little different. Even though the sales after Kirby left went up, the approach was kind of different, where he was more into the torch and the thing. And while they were doing it, there was a kind of feeling that, these creators miss Kirby and Lee. Like they kind of approaching a book like we're kind of trying to just do, like kind of stay in place. And they moved away from like the tragedy, but they were like sort of where you see the FF movies, where it was just sort of a fun book. They'd have some poignant moments, that sort of thing. That like even Johnny Storm and Crystal kind of breaking up and her getting married. But there was a period where they were kind of just like treading water, even though it was successful. Then you had the big sort of burst where Byrne was kind of, because people now look at it, but he was going back to the basics, back to what kind of he got them their success, and that got them big numbers. The Steve Engelhardt period kind of just went left because he didn't want to write Reed and Sue, but when he was forced to do it and he took a pen name, that period is those couple of first issues that he did with Reed back in there, some of the best issues he did, and he wasn't even signing his name on it. And I think Simonson did a decent run on there. It wasn't big numbers, but it's just like you're doing it because you like this stuff. I mean, he did That's the thing. Civil War is a story. Like, you remember the Marvel Civil War comic book about like people going to court and saying, "Hey, this, like people being they couldn't be heroes. You had to be, registered and all that stuff." They did in Simonson and Run. He did that before, right? He did that where there's this trials, and in the Civil War later, Reed is the one who said, "Hey, my what's the name fought against McCarthy, and my uncle fought against McCarthy, and he was wrong." In the Simonson story, Reed goes to Congress and says, "This Mutant Registration Act is wrong. This is wrong. I'm not allowing it." He was he did got the characters right. So who cares what it sold? It's a classic run. Then you had the period where the editor in chief.
Yeah, we don't need to go over the whole thing we're talking about is the
running the book into the ground.
We're just for the love of God.
And that's the thing. So you look at the success of it, and there's different things that are running, kicking in. And
we're talking about now the new generation of those guys, right?
The newer generation of comics are still using the Avengers, the first movie, all that bickering. That's the Fantastic Four. You look at the Thor, the Planet Hulk stuff. That's the thing fighting Torgo.
It's the Avengers. That's the point I'm making.
It's not because you're saying they're better characters. You do that same.
I didn't say that. I never said better characters. I'm not denying that they would
be into the thing, being stuck on the Skrull planet, fighting Torgo. Like, what is it? I think it's a Torgo. That sort of thing. The best fighter that doesn't want to kill the thing because he's stuck. He just forced to fight. Like that sort of power where the thing is like, and Thing at the same time, we're looking at Thing, even though he doesn't talk like Torgo, like we don't want Thing to kill Torgo. Like that sort of thing that they use later for other stories. Keep going down the plot lines. The whole Magneto and Xavier, that's freaking the Submariner and the FF, and it's Reed and Doctor Doom. Everything that they did in the book has been repeated. The creators, the Marv Wolfman and Perez said they weren't trying to do the X-Men. They were trying to do Stanley and Jack Kirby's Fantastic Four.
I'm not fighting that. I think you're going down the wrong road there.
Claremont trying to bring back.
We clearly know you have a horse in this race.
The horse is the Fantastic Four. How many plot lines?
What do you got to say? What do you got to say, Morris? As long as it's not some trolling, what do you got to say?
I'm not trolling. I just said a simple thing. Right now they're not at the top. I mean, they've done better recently. They're really
Scrolls.
Okay.
That's all I'm basically saying. And I'm saying, in the comic books, are you asking me a question or are you going to answer the question?
Well, I'm just saying, when you phrase it that way, okay, when you phrase it that way, it comes off incredibly dismissive towards the Fantastic Four, knowing that a whole bunch of these guys are robbing and stealing all these Fantastic Four plot lines, that these guys wouldn't exist without the Fantastic Four, and all these characters that you're talking about now, Cap, Iron Man, Thor, nobody cared about them. They had to make movies about these guys for these guys to do. If you want to look at their sales numbers and so on and so forth, circa 2008, before they got all of this exposure, millions of dollars worth of exposure. Okay, nobody cared about these characters. So we could do the same. We could do the same for the Fantastic Four, and I'm certain that their numbers would improve, or even more. You could go back and look at the Fantastic Four circa the time of the 2 movies that came out, and I'm positive their numbers were better than any of these guys now because they had more exposure. So to make that approach that, well, they're not doing so well right now. Well, I'm not going to do as well as you if I'm over here shuffling along with $5 and you're getting $1 million treatment. So let's just talk about the great characters. When they treat it as the Fantastic Four, excellent. If they treat it as the quirky quartet, not so much.
So what quartet?
Quirky.
Yeah. And I would just, I know I went on a total rant.
No, that was great.
A total rant, a complete total rant.
But if you look at these movies, all right, let's see how far we have to go before we see a Fantastic Four character. Agatha Harkness is in here. We have the Watcher that's in the What If. We keep going down here.
Black Panther,
the big successes in this, the bickering of the Avengers, this whole dynamic. That's the fan that was not in there beforehand. And then you keep going like even these, you have Ronin that's in this story. Like, come on, Black Panther was a character from the, as Cal already said. You got the
No
scroll.
one is denying it.
Let's say you just I just went through how many villains have I just pointed out? You got the Skrulls, Fantastic Four movie, Black Panther, Fantastic Four movie. I mean, come on, Ronin, Fantastic Four movie. Like, so you're taking these fantastic. Oh, you go into Microverse, Fantastic Four movie. They're the first ones to go to the micro world.
Ant-Man.
Before Ant-Man, Ant-Man didn't go that far. He just went small and he fought Egghead, and the Fantastic Four went into the microverse, and then they found a whole race of people, and they found Doctor Doom already there as a giant, and the Fantastic Four had to fight him in that different world. So they went to the quantum thing. They did that first. So you're like, all these things that they pull from is from starting from the Fantastic Four.
You should read that story if you haven't already, Mars. You would like that one. The whole Doom aspect of him coming. You would love that story. They arrived there. They're like, "What do you mean Doom is here? what do you mean?" Doom is like, "I'm going to start small."
But the main thing that's been driving the X books that people look to Chris Claremont saying, what a great dynamic of saying having Reed be on, having Xavier be on one end and Magneto, and then at some point they had this past, but of course when they meet up in the future they're at opposite ends. Is so much Reed and Doom. It's just, but adding in the curse of what happened to his people is what the Submariner had. So it's just like you take these great bits and you add it to your character. Before that, it wasn't there. So much that the Fantastic Four had brought first. That first thing where the villain appears, and mainly like the DC comics would have you give the meet the character, like the character, like when you meet Lex Luthor. He's got this layer in the first stories and this great Superman. He like Lex Luthor thinks he's so smart. Superman is like, this guy is just totally insane. Similar to how they played it in the movie. It's almost exact because like Lex Luthor really is into himself and Superman is just like whatever. But they give you an introduction to this character, what he does, his layer and all this stuff. But what's the name? The Fantastic Four introduced Doom, and Reed is like, I recognize that voice. And we get it. You can't hear in comic books. You're reading. But we get it nonetheless. And then when he appears and every time he comes, he's the one character that came back the most in the Fantastic Four. I think the Mole Man, he came back like 3 times. But it's like Doom is just back there. Like he comes at the best, even the most creative period during that, between the 40th issues and 70th issue. Doom has just a big romp story where he gets to fight, finally, and literally gets to fight the Fantastic Four. So there's so much that we're drawing from them to just look at the Fantastic Four movie and be like, see, it doesn't work. See, then that's really not the picture that I want to display just because we had these soft movies that Kevin Feige was a part of. He was those shoots for that thing. So, I mean, what can you do? And hopefully he's not doing what they said, where he's casting, trying to do some diversity for the Fantastic Four. Sorry to say. Hello?
What do you want me to say?
You want me to say that the whole Time Variance Authority, though they weren't created in there, Walter Simonson did their biggest, most powerful story. The whole Mobius, I think Mobius is introduced in the Fantastic Four, and that sort of thing is done in the. So let's not. And then what he did is so much bigger in there. He did their layer, that sort of thing. So many cool things in there. So there's so much as we go through it. We can't just be like, oh yeah, thanks for we took the baton and we finished the race. No, a lot of the legs of the race was already done before they passed off stuff to these other characters, and the cosmic part of even the Spider-Verse. There's no Spider-Man is not that cosmic, but the Fantastic Four are. So it's like in doing a story, a cosmic story, which people say cosmic doesn't sell, and they did it for the Spider-Verse. And then you say, well, we can't do a cool animated movie with some cosmic elements in the negative zone. Because the Fantastic Four doesn't sell. We only can sell it with wrapping a Spider-Man around it. Hogwash.
Yeah, if you look at all the Marvel films and you took out all the Fantastic Four elements, okay, you don't have the Marvel Cinematic Universe any longer. You don't have a Captain Marvel film. Okay, you don't have a Black Panther film. You you don't have the Tesseract. So all of this stuff chasing out, because the Tesseract was the cosmic cube, which was a Captain America element, and they decided, now we want to do this with this whole thing with the other stuff. No, you don't have those. You don't have those particular things any longer. All the there's a whole bunch of stuff. There's a whole bunch of stuff that you have there, and stuff that's coming down the pike that you just don't have anymore if you take out all the Fantastic Four elements. So I mean, it's like I'm a big fan of Zorro. And I can get, nobody cares about Zorro right now, or Tarzan, or the Phantom. And you can always like, well, they're not really hitting with the audience right now. Hey, that's their statement at the end of the day. But, it's a difference with, like, I'm pumping in $5 million worth of promotion in the Zorro, okay? And I'm not doing anything with the Phantom over here. And they're like, well, the Phantom just doesn't resonate with people. Well, you're not putting any money into this guy, okay? And then if at the bottom, well, let me not say at the bottom, but in the pool where all the ideas are supposed to be created, you're not getting that part done, okay? Then it's going to be even people, keep doing the same thing. Well, why should we put any money into this? These guys only do middling stuff, and that's like because you're only doing middling when it comes to them at the end of the day. And you got a perfect 100-issue blueprint for what to do with these guys. Ton of stories, ton of things you can do there. And instead, they're like, to an extent, it's like, hey, let's rob from these guys, to come over here and put the stuff here. So, yeah, I mean, I get that they're not, I mean, that's I don't know, it's hard for me to accept that one, because that's such an ebb and flow when it comes to things. At one point, you have Captain Marvel, the original Captain Marvel, true one, Billy Batson, and everybody likes, oh, he was outselling Superman. He hasn't outsold Superman in a very, very, very long time at the end of the day. So the whole idea of, numbers, numbers are going to change, but what doesn't change are the contributions that those characters have made, including characters like Captain Marvel, that those characters have made overall. Without Captain Marvel, you don't get characters like Thor or He-Man for that matter. And without the Fantastic Four, you lose out on a whole bunch of stuff that people enjoy right now. Without the Fantastic Four, you don't have the what if stories because you don't have Uatu narrating them. Okay, so the whole you don't want to be I don't want to be dismissive of the contributions for the sake of the fact that they're not in the top 10 in terms of selling books. I think we can all agree on that, right, Victor?
Oh, I didn't get who was actually here and not the actual Mars, but his alter ego,
Victor Von Doom.
Victor Mars Doom. I mean, I have to accept it. This is what it is, isn't it? So, he's
I
gonna
should
be.
ask, hey, who's your favorite? I should have said, hey, who's your favorite Fantastic Four character? And he would have probably said me, Victor Von.
Well, I mean, that's one of the things. One of the things, if you look at, I think, look at this picture of this is probably the better of the two, because it's Silver Surfer alone. But one of the aspects of this thing is turning Johnny into the Super Skrull. Where he has all the power. They can't win unless they give all the most popular character in the movie all the powers, and it's just like that's not really teamwork. And that's one thing you get kind of lost in, which the X-Men movies didn't get lost in, is not trying to kill yourself, trying to have the total teamwork thing and counting up times and minutes, or doing this where they like, I think in the first Fantastic movie, Reed comes to, we have to figure it out together. And then this one is like, we have to give Johnny all the power. And then, and it's like, most of the time, the powers just keep them alive. The stories are what are like the diverse stories of idea of, I mean, people always cite, this man, this monster. And it's a story where, it's not even a hero versus villain story. It's a villain versus himself type of story where you have a thing. They even have humor. The way people talk about it, I didn't expect it to have any humor in it, and it does have some humor. So one of the things which I think we look at these movies, and like the outfits are okay, but they really need to kind of come up with the outfits looking like some cool sort of space sort of outfits that don't really look like the skin type, like we're like Captain America without the mask type of thing. Like
Unless
really. Hmm?
Jessica Alba is wearing the outfit.
Yeah. I mean, you have to put the women in the skin tights outfits, but really try to come up with something that's cool instead of just saying here's the bodysuit, that sort of thing. Because I think that's what kind of messed up the, no, because Kirby already went there. Because initially he kind of drew like, well, let's go. I mean, instead of, I know I jumped around. One of the things is they kind of put the thing of, well, if we didn't have the challengers, we wouldn't have the FF. And one of the things that you have to remember is that they're kind of drawing from the same thing in like the Lost Horizon type of storyline, but in the book you have those really different type of personalities, and that's where you can see the Fantastic Four kind of drawing of having these different personalities, having a crash, having them go to these different worlds. The Fantastic Four goes to many different worlds and lands, and that's one of the cool things. That's why when people say, we might have said, one of us, I don't think it's me because I'm not the one who usually talks about them being explorers, but I do think it's a strong part of their character. One of the things is trying to get to that explorer outfit of them finding new worlds. The only problem is that all the new worlds are the ones that the MCU is using. They're using all the worlds, and then we also have a Josh Trank movie where they use the negative zone, which is a sucky negative zone. It's just some space out, and so can the Fantastic do another movie with the negative zone where the studio is like, well, we already did the negative zone, it didn't work. He's like, but it looked terrible. It wasn't cool. We're gonna do a cool negative zone. Nah, fans don't want to do that. We don't want to waste money on that. So one of the things you have to look at is that these characters kind of drew from that same pool as the challengers, whereas they really followed the different personalities of what you saw in the Lost Horizon, and what Cal was also talking about with the multi-genre storyline, doing romance and and superheroes and tragedy and all that, and they could do a western with the Fantastic Four. They could do anything, and Kirby was kind of doing that with the challengers, but he didn't have the romance in there and the characterization. So that's why when we say the challengers, I just want to, when you go to them, you're just like, hey, I like these things, but they're not really the FF, like June and none of that. They just sort of have similar sort of number of characters. Even if you go to Rocky is very like, they don't have the personality of the Fantastic Four, and that's not a knock. And when you look at the Justice League, and there wasn't very much, but you can look at the Justice League, that first issue, and it has the same notes as the Fantastic Four first issue. You have the heroes getting the call, and them all, dealing with stuff, and then they get together and they take on this monster. So, but look at you don't have to look at this and say that it doesn't work. You can kind of, and no, that's the other thing. I don't even have to go any further with that. The Fantastic Four, in Infinity War, there's a storyline in the second season. Oh, I gotta go to this thing. I'm sorry. I just had to do it. Where's the second season? Where's the second? Oh, here we go. The second season. In the second season, we have, they meet. They battle the living planet. Remember that I was gonna say the second movie, the second part of the galaxy. They took this aspect of Thor flying around in space, and then when they meet the Fantastic Four running to Thor, they're like, oh my gosh, it's the God of Thunder. He's right in front of us. Wow, he's more intense, in me. And the thing is, like, he doesn't look that big to me. And that same sort of note that was in the Guardians of the Galaxy. And then, of course, I think what Byrne did a story where Ego comes and they have to use a bomb to get him to fly away from the planet. So it's like you're just borrowing stories from the FF all the time. So we got to give them their due, because it's such a wealth of.
No one is talking about taking away their due. No one is talking
You
about.
are, because they're not selling anymore.
All I'm saying is that
Dan Slott, Infant Terrible, is screwing up the FF.
All I'm saying is that when you
Called FF comfort food. If all comic books aren't comfort food, like then what else is it? You can't just have there's tragedy, there's good storyline, and at the same time we had Alex Ross. We had Alex Ross wanting to do it, and he's like, "No, I gotta go first." But you
Is that the white flag? Are you waving the white flag?
Yeah, I'm waving the white flag. I mean, you guys are beating me down. It's like I don't understand.
This is supposed to be a celebration.
It can be, but you're not celebrating.
Sales of
I just brought up a simple thing, and you guys took it out of context.
You fought for the sales being bad when all of the classic stories was then you made me have to go underhanded and talk about Jim Lee's being a success. See what you
but that's 20 years ago. Okay, silence. I
with
finally
the success of that, he almost was editor-in-chief of Marvel.
Almost. He's
If he was able to sell his company to Marvel, he would have been it.
Yeah, could have. All right, so guys, thanks for that brief.
One thing I do want to say. One other thing.
You're a little low.
Say again? Sorry. Better?
Yeah, that's better.
Yeah, I mean, and this is just to continue with something that Petey said here. You know, when you take stuff from another character and you mine through all of their stuff for these, every other people's stories, you don't leave a lot. Okay, you don't leave a lot left over for them. I pointed this out in the first Spider-Man movie. You see Mary Jane walking, and then she slips, and her tray goes up in the air, and this, Peter Parker comes over and he catches everything on the tray. And when I was looking at that, I was like, that's the Flash. That's showcase. That's showcase number 4 right here, where the Flash comes and the waitress trips, and then he catches everything. There's a classic scene where you see like the drink is falling, and then you see the cup at the other end where it's going right back into it. It's a classic scene, and I've seen that replicated in all these different scenes. I saw that in X-Men with Quicksilver, but it was never with the Flash. It was never with the Flash. That whole slow movement of everything being out of sorts and then righting itself, that is a moment that was created with the Flash. And because they never got around to doing that with the Flash, even when he had his own TV show, they never got around to doing that. That became something that was attached to a whole bunch of other stuff when that was his, and it should be synonymous with him at the end of the day. Same thing when you do the stuff with the Fantastic Four. If you're like, well, look, you guys, we're going to take all these characters, all the dialogue, all the storylines, all of this. What did you leave me at the end of the day? I got to come up with all new stuff for the audience, because the audience is not going to look on it like, hey, this was originally mine. The audience is looking at it like, oh, you're trying to rip off the Avengers or something of that nature. So that's also something to keep in mind, that these guys have been so integral, to the Marvel universe that, they're mining the Fantastic Four stuff. And, as fans of the Fantastic Four, and in the year where it's their 60th anniversary, you want to say, hey, stop the mining of the stuff for other characters and pay attention to these characters at the end of the day. These are the reasons why you are able to successfully tell some of these stories, because you continuously borrow from them and you continuously imitate them and emulate them. That's why. That's why you're able to be successful with it. So again, numbers are going to be what they are. And I am positive you do a Fantastic Four movie, I'm positive you do a Fantastic Four movie, the numbers in the Fantastic Four are going to jump, like a grasshopper, out of hot water. They're going to be off the charts. People will pay attention to it again.
But will it be sustainable? I mean, we've seen the Fantastic Four movies, and the comics have not been sustainable relative to the X-Men comic books, which have been sustainable, and the same thing. So, hey, I agree. It will go up, but the question is, will it be sustainable? All right, like you said, they need more top talent.
It's two different questions in two different periods, because when you had the films over there, those films were pretty much self-contained. All right, the Marvel Universe is not a self-contained entity. The Marvel Universe is interconnected, which has allowed a lot of stuff that may have not been successful on its own to flourish. So, totally different when you, maybe I'll go see.
The X-Men were self-contained. The X-Men were self-contained movies.
The X-Men never needed a movie. The X-Men have always had the star treatment. Same thing with Spider-Man. Spider-Man doesn't need a movie. Spider-Man always gets star treatment. The other books, you need the manipulation of these characters. If you're not pushing these characters, okay, people tend to forget about them or take them for granted. The publishers treat them as free money, and you don't go anywhere from there.
you've got a different thing going on. You got a totally different thing going on right now. And it really is an apples to oranges thing. Before you had the movie came out, the movie was on its own. Okay, if it did well, no problem. And then the movie was going to run what? 2 movies, 3 if you were lucky, 4 if they really got some good numbers out of it. Here, the potential is not the same. Especially with characters can turn up in somebody else's film, turn up on TV, totally different entity at this point. Okay, but I'm positive. The only other time I knew that people were really hot to the Fantastic Four, there was supposed to be something Alex Ross was working on, and it just that never. I mean, he's doing some covers now, but the stories and such, it just never happened. And I knew guys were really hot for that. Didn't happen. But you put these guys in the film, give them some proper exposure. It's no different than a whole bunch of the other characters. Comic book guys take these characters for granted. Don't care about the books until everybody else wants. Traditional, it's like the guy who doesn't want the girl until somebody else starts talking. Now, oh, wait a second. It was the same thing. We have a lot of the same stuff over here. So you give these guys the same treatment. Okay, you put the same type of productivity and money and attention into the Fantastic Four. There's a good chance the Fantastic Four will outshine just about everything else put there because they already took everything from them in the first place to make these characters shine.
Well, I would just.
Is there something else you want to say, Pete?
Of course, there's something else I want to say. One of the things that I'm going to utilize this from.
Excellent example.
Take this book here. This is ultimately what they kind of borrowed for the movie because the outfits have the 4 on sort of on the side rather right in the middle, right? So we have this thing. We have a lot of things they had some negative thought that was going on to this, that it wasn't, the writing isn't strong, yes, it's hot art, but it's sold well. But we go through this, even this book is influential to actual comics that came after that. We have all this sort of image type of art and, Johnny Storm becoming this new sort of a more of a 90s sort of character. We have sort of the dynamics, even though Jim Lee isn't that strong with the characterization as far as the faces, we got some cool stuff here. As we go along, sort of the elements of Reed sort of have being bookish, but still finding his way with Sue, all that stuff we saw in the movie. But as we go along here, there's that point in here. Is it in this one? Please let it. Oh, and I think in the next one, they have, who's it? Nick Fury. Nick Fury shows up and we see the FFs, and their costumes and whatnot. I think it happens in this issue. They have this fight. And is this happening here? But the idea that post this part, we had the Ultimates, you had the Marvel Cinematic Universe that all starts with Nick Fury being the start of it. That sort of thing happened in this damn Heroes Reborn. So even at the point where people had issue with this sort of Fantastic Four run, they were still influencing the comic book genre. Hello? I lost everybody.
But that's a perfect example of that right there is a perfect example of getting you're getting this hard treatment. You got the rock star art, you got the rock star artist who everybody wants to see, and then all of a sudden now people are like, oh well, let me check this book out at the end of the day. And the numbers on the book were really good. And I mean, they didn't all sell well simply because Jim Lee and Rob Liefeld were on the books and so on. But this was actually one of the better ones. But you finally paid some attention to the book. Hey, let's put some top talent on here and see what happens. Well, golly, sold like hotcakes. I wonder why that is. Sometimes, give them some proper attention. It doesn't always work out, okay? But put some money behind it, and not the whole, not the whole, I don't know if we're gonna put any money into this. We get money out of this without putting money into this. So let's just take the free money. What we need? We need more Spider-Man. That's what we need. Just to get Spider-Man another book.
DC's doing more Batman. Everything's
exactly. That's Hey, that is QED. QED. You have other characters over here that you could manipulate and be doing all this stuff with. And what are you doing? You're turning the other characters into free money, and this is the only character you're going to manipulate. Eventually, eventually when you do stuff like that, and we all know it, the bottom drops out where you say, hey, we can't get the numbers. You have exhausted your audience, you have oversaturated this character, and then you got to start paying attention to your whole lineup. So I'm all, look, you're gonna have to do what you're gonna have to do. If you're gonna put out 15, 16 Batman books, 17 X-Men books, it all works until it doesn't. Then what do? They all do the same thing. They scale back. We're gonna put it just to 2 books so we can concentrate on the character a little bit more, and then they slowly start expanding again. But they never focus on the other characters that could be getting you, they could be getting you there. All right, that's one of the reasons why the DCEU is all over the place, because outside of making a Batman movie, they don't know how to focus on anything else. But they'll get it together. All right, so we're good?
I think we're very good. I think we covered it all. Petey, any last words?
I mean, I don't know. I think that it's just interesting how influential they were in the past and to the present day, where we can't do heroes without having some government thing sponsoring these teams. And so, one of the things that I think is lost in looking at these characters is people go to the nuttiness of saying, for white characters, or this, that, and the other, or they're old. You only can do them in the past. Like, there's all these other things and nothing going to what would made them successful. Then when you have something and someone like you has something that's successful, people are like, hey, well, wait a second, let's you can't do that with these guys and this, that, and the other. And it's like, yes, don't throw their characters away, but then it's like trying to even do some tragic stuff with them. They're kind of like, hey, this is but we can trash Reed as much as we want. And that's where you kind of find your problems with the characters. Yes, Reed should hold a lot of regret for Ben. But then, like, was online and people saying, like, Reed figures out that he's trapped in Littleville by the Puppet Master and Doctor Doom, and he says the Puppet Master isn't smart enough to figure this out, to do something like this. It had to be someone bigger, realizing it's probably Doom. But at the same time, someone said, oh, look, he just insulted the Puppet Master. He insulted a villain that isn't smart. It's just the truth. Like, he can't sit around and be nice. He's not this guy that just says everything perfect. It's like the Puppet Master just turned them into slaves for the rest of their lives. They're tiny things stuck on the top of a table. And someone's worried about what the Puppet Master thinks. Like, come on. These guys just want to find, Reed is a jerk. Then you go through, Reed, look at Reed talking to Sue like she's a girl. Like, I could find that same quote done by Captain America in the 60s. I could possibly find that by I can find it with Spider-Man or Peter Parker talking to Betty Brant.
Hey, how does this celebrate this Fantastic Four?
I am celebrating them, and I'm saying that they're quality characters. They are rich characters. It's shown that if the idea that Byrne's success drove it no. Yes, the book was the number probably 4 book, I guess it's the number 3 book after the Hulk and Spider-Man. At the same time, Byrne was getting his success on the Fantastic Four. The X-Men became the number 1 book, and at times the FF was the number 2 book. But Byrne's hype couldn't just hold the book. There had to be something else to that to just say this was a decent run. There's people that have issues with this, that, and the other, but the characters themselves had to have carried it. It's like 5 years of him doing it, and it was just a flash in the pan. There has to be something to those characters to say, hey, this is a quality look. They look solid. It works. If you go and that's what you have to look at. There's 100 issues of success and this, that, and the other, where it's the number 1 and number 2 book, and at some point they knock DC out of the water with the success of Marvel, and you can't throw it out saying, oh, this period they didn't do anything as big.
Nobody is throwing anything.
The first Galactus story. There's so much creation from 40 to 70, creating more characters, like pure creation. Like, not just saying here's a villain. The Inhumans, that sort of creation No creator has compared to what Stanley and Jack did in that period. And that's after creating the Fantastic Four. So it's like, can't support saying how quality these characters are. They're great characters. They should be in their own movie. And I think, we argued, and we got a show where we argued what we would think would be the best way to do it. But that just shows the energy of how fun this could be. Even your energy on how cool a villain Doom could be. So I support. I'm happy
Don't
to
lock
get.
me down with Doom alone, okay?
Huh?
I like other guys too.
You like other villains, I know. But we talk
Characters, not villains, characters.
Villains, you say?
I say
That's
characters.
what I got to say about this.
Thank you very much, Petey. You've been extremely informative, both you and Cal. I hope that you can garner at least one new Fantastic Four reader going forward with this.
And watch our other videos on the FF. We got some cool ones on there.
Happy 60th anniversary, Fantastic Four. We're always in your corner.
Yes. Spinnerack.
Out.
I hope you do better, Fantastic Four.
That's it. That's it.
Not surprised.